Hi fellow collectors and those of you just curious about the hobby. Today's episode will be part one of a two-part series. The subject is artillery, and I'm going to divide my collection into standalone pieces and those pieces which are manned, meaning they have a gun team. In Canada, we have a long tradition of artillery, dating back to the French and British militaries and the eventual evolution of what the Canadian Armed Forces now refers to as its artillery element. I was participating in a virtual meeting of collectors this year, and we were talking about artillery, and it was interesting to see that not everyone has artillery pieces in their collections. While you will see that I have fallen down the proverbial rabbit hole in acquiring artillery, some collectors see this as a choice where space or the opportunity to spend on non-artillery pieces or figures guides their collections. I totally understand this rationale. To each their own, after all. Your collection has to be something that brings you enjoyment and should never be filled with purchases that you regret having or not having. So let's start today with strictly artillery pieces, but no accompanying figures or add-ons. Some of these pieces have appeared briefly in previous episodes and may appear in future episodes, but I'll try to spend a little time on what they are. I'll begin with the Crescent Toy pieces. First of which are two relatively identical pieces but produced at different times. These are the 5.5-inch howitzer gun. One I purchased when I was 9 years old, and I'll leave it at that. And the other I purchased last year in an Ontario antique market. Now, let's speculate on which one is the earlier production. You guessed it, the one without the little green plastic button on the firing mechanism. Makes you wonder if they were afraid you'd put your eye out on the firing mechanism. Other than this plastic piece, they're pretty much identical in every aspect. The older one, a little more loved. The newer one, tires are a little bit different. The paint's a little bit more fresher. Next is a series of Britain's pieces. I'm sure someone out there has at least one of these, so I'll try to be quick before you fall asleep or move on to some YouTube cooking show. This is a Britain's number 1263 Royal Artillery Small Gun post-war. Not much to say here. Next up are several of the 4.7-inch naval gun, which Britain's produced in response to the then recent events in South Africa. Look at this photo of the weapon in use, and then look at the Britain's pieces. I guess you could say this reflects the evolution of this iconic Britain's field gun. The first is set number 1264, and as you can see, represents the earliest version. Like the original gun used in the Boer War, there is no front shield. The paint is, I think, the result of a process called fuming, but the barrel is a bronze color, and the carriage and wheels are grayish. The gun still fires and elevates, does everything else. This version dates from as early as 1905 to 1915, give or take a year or two earlier. And the fuming as a process was discontinued in 1924 due to it being a health danger. What a surprise. The other 4.7-inch guns are set number 9730, and what we commonly see, and ending with this one, still in its box and in pristine condition. I have several of the Britain set number 9715 gun of the Royal Artillery in various conditions and colors. I have always been in awe of the Britain's number 1265, the 18-inch Garrison howitzer, which seems to be an attempt to mimic this piece, that is the 9.2-inch howitzer found in the Imperial War Museum in London. Next to this is the wheeled version set number 1266, which looks to mimic the 8-inch howitzer in this Imperial War Museum photograph. Next are several Britain's number 9705 25-pound howitzers. Now, two of these are identical, and these are ones that I bought when I was much younger, sometime in the 1970s. And you'll notice how the front piece, the shield on the front, is very plain, and there's nothing on the end of the muzzles. And then you look at the last one that I bought, which I purchased at an Ontario antique store,
And it does have something at the end of the muzzle. I don't know if they call that a muzzle brake or what it is. And the shield has more detail. But one thing you can tell about these is the weight. The original two that I bought in the 70s weigh significantly more than the one that was produced much later. This is my Britain's number 1717 2-pounder anti-aircraft gun mounted on the chassis, which appeared in episode 5. Alongside this is a Britain's number 1725 4.5-inch howitzer. This piece is easily recognizable as coming from the Britain's number 9732, the German Pak 38 anti-tank gun. Last is Britain's set number 31066, which was passed off as a Napoleonic 12-pounder gun or a U.S. Civil War cannon. This one is not complete, as some pieces are missing from it. I found this British 13-pound field gun in another antique store, but this one looks like it was made from a kit, and I think it was a good job, much better than I could do. There's something about a kit made and painted by hand, several processes removed from a factory piece. It shows that someone took the time to put it together, paint, and repaint it, and I think that passion for the hobby is worth having. I have a John Jenkins War of 1812 British 24-pound cannon, and I'm thinking, how can I incorporate some figures around it one day? Maybe the subject of a future video. This piece is a Dinky Toys number 656, the classic World War II 88mm field flak gun on a wheeled chassis. It also comes with its original ammunition still on a sprue. I bought this from a friend, and I've been looking for an 88 for a while. The bigger makers have all done them, and they can be quite expensive. Remember that thing I mentioned at the beginning about cost versus other choices? Nonetheless, the price is right. Now I have one. Take a glance at this piece. Again, another find in an antique store. I had to scrape the internet to find information about this. It's made by Bullock in England. It is a 6-pound anti-tank gun, but it is not 1/35th scale. While this was made post-war for the toy market, there was a reference to Bullock pieces used as desktop models for military branches due to their size and detail, something like planes found on the desks or display cabinets at airports. I've never seen anything like this size, and yes, the firing mechanism works. I just wonder what the projectile would look like. So you see what I mean by falling down a rabbit hole, and these are only the pieces I have without figures. If you like this episode, please hit the like or subscribe buttons. Thank you.